Today's episode is all going to be about EcoFlow. We first heard about EcoFlow from a friend of ours here in the area, and this one seemed to be the most interesting. So a while back, we actually purchased 2 EcoFlow Max battery packs for just general having the ability to have off-grid power here at Flock. So EcoFlow just reached out to us because they have a new and upgraded version of the EcoFlow Max. It's called the Delta 2 Max. There's still a lot of the same features, but I think the main upgrade is that the battery is different. So with the old EcoFlow, which we have here, this is a battery that is lithium and it has 800 charge cycles. This battery is an LFP battery, which is a new battery technology that allows up to 3,000 recharge cycles. So this will last us a lot longer. Plus, I'm actually more comfortable using this in a barn, in the wood shop, in our houses, because this battery is supposedly a little bit more safe than some of the lithium batteries that they have. So we're excited about this upgrade, and when they reached out to ask us if we wanted to do a video about it, we were like, sure, we'll show you how we use it. Full disclosure, we got this unit for free, but we have these units ourselves. We are obviously biased towards them because, you know, we're already like fully subscribed to the system. So in this video, we wanted to show you how we use the EcoFlow in our daily lives. So one of the uses is here in the wood shop. You know, I'm using a lot of tools, and tools like a planer or like a table saw or like a miter saw, they don't often come with batteries. Miter saws are great, they have battery packs often, but some of these older units, they don't have it and they just have a power cord. And you know, although working in here is nice, sometimes, you know, I have my planer out here and these cords, they're really short, so it often creates like a trip hazard. It is nice to actually have the option to grab the EcoFlow like this and just plop it wherever I want, like this, and plug it in. And now I can run this planer. I often use like an extension cord between it because I don't want to get sawdust all into this unit. So I want to be realistic, but technically you could do it this way. So this is like a small planer, and a planer is some of the most heavy use of equipment. So you just turn this on, and you can see we're at 99% charge, and with the current load, we can get 99 hours. Now, what I like about this EcoFlow design is that it's so simple, like as far as the interface goes. Like as I'm building and I'm learning about electricity, every device uses a certain amount of watt hours of energy. And this EcoFlow interface with these 2 digits here, it makes it super easy to understand how much power each device is using. And you'll see here, like once we turn this planer on, it's gonna get very loud. There's a little power button for each group of outlets. So you wanna make sure if you're using the USB, you wanna turn this button on. Let's run this real quick. This is the heaviest planer we have. When it's drawing like 1800 watts, it can run for like an hour with this thing, which is more than enough. So pay attention to this thing and we'll throw something through the planer here. All right, check it out. So this is turning it on, and then you'll hear that the power demand's gonna change when the wood goes through it.
Hit almost 2,400.
2,400, see?
Almost, 23
So
something.
that planer is definitely the biggest energy hog of them all, and it often tripped my breakers in our barn circuit here. So it's just, you know, it also depends. Like this was a very thin piece of wood, but if it's like a 10-inch wide plank that goes through here, that's going to take a lot of power to run that. So, but you can see this thing can do it. It's insane. And what I find interesting is that you look at a device like a fridge or whatever, and it says how much energy it uses, or this might use 600 watts, but it really depends because, for example, if we plug this saw in, see now the cord's too short, so I could just move this over here. Let's see, let's plug this in. Now, watch this dial as I make a cut. You'll see that once it gets into the wood, it actually gets a lot more resistance and it takes a lot more energy to run this saw. So. Did you see it go up? Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think it goes like normally when it runs, it uses like 800 watts, but then when you really get into some wood and you make a cut, it can go up to like 1800 watts.
Yeah, I think it went up to actually 2100, I saw.
Yeah, 21. So sometimes another thing that these power tools do, as soon as you turn them on, the motor kicks in and it's like, it needs like a huge surge of energy first to get started. It's often in the 2000 something watts. So another thing that this unit can handle is it can handle those like huge demands for a short period of time.
Yeah, because doesn't it only go up to 1800?
Yeah, I think, no, this one goes up to 2400 watts, I think you can run on it, which is a lot because on a normal standard 15 amp circuit breaker, you can run maybe like 1800, maybe a little less because you're only supposed to use 80% of like your full capacity. But, you know, knowing that these tools are kind of made for like 15 amp circuits, like even this planer, it's kind of rated to be, you know, they design it so it fits within that. So knowing that this has 2400 watts, I think it makes it easily fit. I could run 2 things off of this. Although I only really run 1 tool at a time off of this unit because, you know, or you could plug them all in at the same time and just make sure you're only using 1 tool at a time. But oftentimes I just end up moving it anyways. So that's really great because right now we're in a shop, but you know, we've been working on the meadow house for a long time and we didn't have any power out there for a while and we were doing work. So let's go in the shop because there's a couple other things in here that I can run. As I'm building the wood shop, I want to make sure I do a couple projects in here before I actually finish it because I want to make sure I figure out where everything needs to go. So I got a bunch of stuff stacked up here, which gives me indication that it'd be nice to have like some shelves here. Or I got a bunch of screws down here. Is it the correct location for it to be there? So it's kind of a mess. And as a result of that, I don't have any electricity in here yet. You can see all my outlets are still open. I just have one 240 outlet for the table saw, but that's it. And so I don't have any power in here, but yet I'm already working in here. And that's because I have these EcoFlow units and something like my paint gun, like the spray gun. This is a compressor that creates compressed air. So I could just plug that in and then, you know, we can turn it on. It's gonna be loud.
Said like you could probably, if it was just that running it, it's like you could do it for 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, 2 to 3 hours. And the other cool thing is it will just tell you how long you can run it for. And, you know, that's a variable speed, so it can, you know, depending on how much air you need, it's going to draw different amounts of power. This I often use out in the field because this has a very short extension cord. It's nice to be able to have like a nailer or, you know, a staple gun out in the field when I'm working on a project where I don't have power. And I could just work with these 2 units. Vacuums, it can run those things. And the biggest part is battery charging. So these chargers for our batteries, they're often in a building here or in the barn upstairs. But, you know, when you run out of battery, and you're in the woods cutting with the chainsaw, or you're out in the field with the power tool there, you don't want to have to run all the way back to the barn. So what we'd like to do is we like to take 2 dead batteries and just charge them in this thing. And then we'll just bring the EcoFlow with us in like a vehicle like the UTV. And we'll just plug it in. And there it goes. It starts charging. It will take a little bit, but each battery takes maybe like 200 watts. It kind of, it goes up and down a little bit. So sometimes it does like So now there's 2 batteries in here, so we'll go up to 400 total, I think, eventually. And you know, this device is gonna demand a certain amount of power as it goes through the charging cycle, but it takes 45 minutes to charge 2 batteries. It really depends on the amount of amps that go in it. So these are 5 amp hour, so these take 45 minutes. So you could be cutting with a chainsaw with 2 batteries in it. That will last you maybe an hour. And in the meantime, you can already be charging the next set of batteries. And you know, we have a couple of these. We also have a lot of batteries. You could basically have infinite battery storage, because how long is this gonna last? So this is gonna run for another 7 hours. 7 to 9 to 13. Yeah, so it really goes up and down. But you can get more than enough charges out of this before you get tired enough.
Yeah, a full day of charges.
That was one of the decisions too that we made. Like when we looked at all the different EcoFlow units that they have, we wanted to make sure that we invested in a version that could just outlast us the day, using all kinds of tools and stuff like that. Like if I have this with me here, you know, I'm cheating a little bit because I have obviously power in the barn and I have another EcoFlow unit actually over there that I'm using. But you know, this will definitely last us a day, and we just plug it in at the end of the day and let it charge overnight. So yeah, that's battery charging right there. Let me show you this other EcoFlow unit, because another big use case that we have is power supply for when the power goes out. We live in an area where, you know, after a big storm, the power lines are just hanging above the road. Something might break and then we don't have power for a couple hours. So if it's in the middle of winter and there's a big winter storm, we can't have this building go below 0 or get too cold, because there's certain amounts of tools stored in here. We have a big tank of water sitting there. Like we can't have that freeze on us. So we have to make sure that this building has heat. So one of the things that I've done is I've got this EcoFlow unit here. This is the Pro. This is like the biggest one they make. And it's basically just plugged into one circuit dedicated for it. And it basically acts as like a backup battery for the whole shop. So what I have is I have a heater there on the wall, and it's a gas heater, like a propane heater. But you know, the circuit board of that propane heater, it takes a little bit of power. So this unit can power that heater for like 2 to 3 days, because it barely takes any energy to run the heater, because it runs on a propane. You know, I could run, you know, an electric heater, but that would definitely be a couple hours versus a couple days. Another thing we run off of this is all of our internet equipment for this barn area here, with all the security cameras and things like that, and all the other stuff that I'm planning to integrate here. If the power goes out, all that stuff still runs, because oftentimes when the power is out, you still have internet as long as you power your router. And another thing I love this thing for is that it has all these USB ports. So I can be charging my laptop here without needing that big brick that always comes with your charging cord. This has all these EcoFlow units have a 100-watt USB-C charger. That's really fast charging for this laptop. That's basically the amount of charge that you get with the original cord. So it's really nice to have that option. I have some phone chargers here, so you know, as I'm working in the shop, this is actually another cool thing, is that these things are really nice tables to kind of lay things on. I often use this, the top of this EcoFlow as this little tray for screws and things. You know, you got 2 washers or whatever, where are you gonna put them in the meantime? Just put them right here. Yeah, and I would say it's pretty indispensable to have it here in the workshops, especially when I don't have any electricity. And I really just use it as another tool. You know, I can use any of my tools anywhere on the land. I'm not restricted to being in a building, and that's really empowering, basically. Plus, I can charge this thing in multiple different ways. I can hook it up to, obviously, an outlet and charge it that way. I could charge it with my car. I can plug in a solar panel and then charge it that way. It has enough capacity to last us a day, and then you know, we just charge it overnight, so we have enough power next day. The second biggest use case I would say we have is as a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply. We run 2 YouTube channels, plus do a bunch of client work and things like that. We need a lot of hard drive space. And as you can see, this is kind of our total collection. So each of these hard drives is 5 terabytes. This is basically our backup, and this is basically our active drives that we edit from. And the problem is like if you're working on a computer and the power goes out and you're in the middle of transferring footage from one drive to the other and your hard drive goes out of power, you're done. That hard drive could be screwed up now and your footage might be lost. So it's very important that we have a reliable power source to be able to power all of our equipment so it doesn't go out if there's like a storm. And this, you could have a backup running for 2 days or like 3 days, and it could go on overnight. If the power goes out anytime, it's done. Or if there's a surge, like sometimes if lightning strikes and the power grid gets energized too much, it could blow up your equipment. So that's another reason why in this scenario we often use, or almost all the time, we use the EcoFlow. So basically it sits on the desk or it sits on the ground. And what the other thing is like it provides like 6 outlets for you here. So oftentimes, when we set up our equipment and we're like, well, let's plug in, we got like 6 plugs that we need to plug in, and oftentimes a normal outlet is not going to do it. So this provides us a lot of space. If you plug this into the wall, this now basically becomes an extension cord. Whatever we plug in here, it's like bypassing the battery. So it's actually going straight into the electric grid until the grid goes out. And so, let's plug everything in. These are 4 hard drives. That's a computer. Here's another extension cord. We'll plug that into the middle. So we're really loading this thing up. What's great is on the front, we can have another option to charge again our laptop if we want to, without the power brick, like without this part attached to it, which reduces just clutter on the desk and everything. You could charge your phone in the meantime. And again, this is like 100 watts. Well, so we've used it a little bit, so the battery's at 95%. So this shows, if you're plugging it in, it shows the recharge time. And if you're using it, it shows how much hours or minutes you have left. So, since we used it a little bit in the barn, now it's actually charging back up. And, once it's fully charged at 100%, it will actually use power from this outlet. So we could be charging our phone and everything here. What's even more great about this equipment is that a computer and a couple hard drives, it doesn't take that much power. Like this whole full setup maybe takes like 300, 400 watt when everything is like running and the computer is like working overtime to render, crank out a video, for example. You could work with this setup for like 6 to 8 hours, depending on what you're doing. You could easily make it a full work day. And yeah, the power could be out all day and you could still finish all your work. We have another one of these units downstairs in the basement powering the internet. So, even if the power is out, the internet's still on. So we could still upload and things like that. All right, so I have about 5 terabyte copying, and it's gonna take 13 hours to complete. I also have all my hard drives hooked up here. I have these 3 and 2 more hard drives there. And I'm also exporting a video right here in Final Cut. And this is all running off the EcoFlow for about 230 watts. And you can see that we have it plugged into the grid. It's charging actually a little bit because the battery is just below 100. And what I can do now is I can take the power plug and simulate an outage by unplugging this. And then you can see that no more power is coming in. We're still using about 200 and all the equipment is still running. And we can run that for about 8 hours. The one downside of the EcoFlow sometimes is that it can make a lot of noise if the fans kick on. And that's when you're using the battery, they don't want this thing to overheat, so they just kick on the fans. But what's great about using it in this bypass mode is that the fans don't ever really kick on until the power's out, and then you don't mind that the fans are on because you'd rather have the power. So it's a really great...
Compared to like an actual propane generator.
I mean, that wasn't really any, like, I didn't really have propane or gas generators on my mind at all because they're just so loud and obnoxious. You wouldn't really use them in a everyday setting. So, you know, units like this are really like a first to me on the market as far as like becoming more aware of how much power things use, being able to just have grid-like power everywhere where you go, just not be dependent on where you need to be close to a building or whatever. So this EcoFlow is like a portable off-grid Swiss Army knife of power capabilities. Here's another interesting way that we use the EcoFlow is sometimes I'm out here in the woods just trimming some of the trees or cutting down the trees that need to be cut down. And we have this chainsaw, which works pretty well. If I had to cut like a really, really big tree, I'd rather hire someone to do that. But most of the small stuff I can take care of with this 16-inch saw. And it's electric, which I like because there's barely any maintenance on it other than just the chain and everything. And, you know, it runs for quite a while with these batteries these days. So it also starts and stops, so you don't have to like start an engine every time. Even though this runs off of batteries and it goes for quite a while, they do run out, obviously. So I can get maybe like an hour of work with this thing on 2 batteries. But what's great is that if we have the EcoFlow with us, I can have 4 batteries charging here. These are all dead. They're being charged right now. 2 bars. This still has 1 bar. 2 batteries will be charged in 45 minutes if they're 5 amp hour. And if you look at the EcoFlow, we're at 94% battery, and this thing uses about 800 watts to charge 4 batteries. So it can go for 2 hours, it says. So if it takes 45 minutes to charge, let's just say an hour, just to be safe. So that means for 2 hours, I can have 8 batteries, which is 4 hours of me cutting in the woods with these batteries. So I can bring 6 batteries with me and get 3 hours out of that. And then I can charge them again and then get another, like, it basically lasts, you know, a day and a half or so. And that's way beyond the amount of time that I'm in here to do all the cutting. But, you know, what's great is that I don't have to run back to the house in order to pick up new batteries or something like that. And that's like a real benefit if you're out here in the woods. You don't want to have to constantly go back and forth to check if the batteries are charged or drop them off to be charged. So that's another way we use them, and it's great.
Special thanks to EcoFlow for partnering with us on this video. Now, if you'd like to consider one of their solar generator units, check out our discount and offer in the description below this video. We find a lot of uses for our EcoFlow units, and we think you would too. And stay tuned here for more videos at Flock. 10% of our Google AdSense revenue is reinvested back into community projects here in the Finger Lakes, and that's even matched by our partners over at Espoma Organic. So your support truly matters, no matter where you view from. We'll see you in the next video.